Tara, as if in a fog, heard the doctor's voice.
This is an experimental new technique. Gives good results, so the chances of your mother's recovery are very high. Just don't delay with the payment. There is no possibility of any delay.
The girl nodded and left the doctor's office. It was April, the sun was warming, and the birds were chirping in the springtime. But without noticing it, Tara sat down on the bench and burst into tears like a child. Fear of losing her only loved one made the girl simply panic. The sum, with a huge number of zeros, was spinning in her head, which she needed to find urgently. After calming down, she slowly walked down the alley, sinking into deep memories. The grey, dull walls of the orphanage, indifferent and aloof nannies, and angry, cruel children constantly trying to hurt the silent and closed little girl with 2 pigtails were before her eyes. Tara had hated this place since she was a little girl. She often sat on the windowsill and watched as parents led the children to school by the hand, carefully adjusting their clothes and telling them something. Why do they have mummies and daddies, but I am all alone and no one wants me? Tara was 8 years old when a pretty, smiling woman came up to her and asked with embarrassment, "Tara, would you like to live with me? I'd like to be your mother." Tara confidently put her hand into the new mother's hand, and they never parted again. When Tara graduated from high school, she began studying to be an elementary school teacher. Along with her studies, she earned a part-time job as a waitress in a cafe, and soon she fell in love at first sight with a regular in the cafe. The guy was incredibly handsome, well-groomed, looked meaningfully at Tara, gave good tips, and once left his phone number. Thus began their romance. Tara, like a naive fool, dreamed of a quick wedding and children. She was unaware that Irvin had such girls in every cafe, and all he wanted was to enjoy the new body. After getting what he wanted, he began to look for a new candidate, and Tara made conclusions and stopped paying attention to men. And soon her personal life was no longer in focus. She began to notice that her mother became pale. She lost a lot of weight. She often got tired, and after the workday fell without energy. Her appetite was completely lost. Sarah refused to go to the doctor, but when she fainted in the middle of the kitchen, Tara literally dragged her by force to the examination. And so, today the doctor frightened Tara with a diagnosis, expensive medications, and possibly a bone marrow transplant. When Tara came home, she tried not to show her worries, but the mother is the mother. She understood everything and asked to say the truth. Tara told her mother everything that the doctor said and burst into tears. "It's okay. It's God's will. Don't cry. I'll be better in the morning. Go to sleep." But Tara was not sleepy. She spent half the night thinking and finally found a solution. Early in the morning, she happily ran into the kitchen, made breakfast, and called her mother. "Mum, I've got it all figured out. We'll sell our apartment and buy a smaller one with surcharge, and we'll spend the money just for your treatment. Why do we need such a big apartment? Yes, the location is good, but we will be fine in another place too." Sarah shook her head doubtfully, but Tara was adamant. She took up the cause with enthusiasm, and buyers were found fairly quickly. The deal was done, and Tara had a week to move out. But trouble happened with the purchase of the new home. Because of her inexperience and credulity, Tara was taken in by a swindler. When she went to look at the house, she liked it very much. But the seller showed her one house, but sold an entirely different one. The fact was that the street names were different by a single letter. The house numbers matched, and Tara did not even have a shadow of a doubt. Instead of a cosy cottage with a beautiful garden, she and her mother ended up in a derelict old house in a remote suburb. Realizing the mistake, Tara was terribly upset. She cried and blamed herself. Sarah was equally horrified, but there was no time for arguments and trials. The woman was getting worse and worse, and she was urgently admitted to the hospital. Tara paid for everything and began to set up households. At first, she was devastated by the miserable shack they had to live in. The yard was overgrown with weeds up to the waist. The house was dusty and dirty, and in some places the floor was rotten. But soon she pulled herself together and, rolling up her sleeves, began to work with enthusiasm. She washed the windows and everything in the house to shine, asked her neighbour to cut down bushes and mow lawns. She plastered all the cracks and crevices and replaced the wallpaper. She was exhausted, and every night she went to bed without energy. But she had a goal. She wanted to get everything done by the time her mother came home from the hospital. After a course of treatment, Sarah felt much better. One evening, they heard a pitying squeak. A puppy was whining under the fence, tangled in some strings. "Mum, look how cute he is," said Tara, taking him in her arms. "Can we keep him? I'll name him Archie." Sarah nodded with a smile, and so the three of them began to live together. Soon Tara became a teacher at the local school, and life was slowly getting better. Only one thing overshadowed the girl. The local bully, Peyton, began to molest her. The young man liked to drink, lived at the expense of a rich and influential father, did not work, and since childhood did not know any refusal. Tara couldn't stand him, but he wouldn't give her a break. "Tara, don't show off. Marry me. You'll be rolling like cheese in butter. Have you heard who my father is?" The girl had told him 100 times that she did not and would not love him, but all this made him even angrier. She tried not to cross paths with Peyton, but soon an event happened that turned her life upside down completely. One evening, Sarah was finishing watching her favourite TV series. Tara was checking her pupils' workbooks when suddenly there was a persistent knock. When she opened the door, she saw in front of her a tall, thin, unshaven man with a backpack over his shoulders. "Hello, who are you?" The guy was indignant in turn too. "I have the same question. I actually came to my house." Tara was surprised, but calmly replied that she bought this house 3 years ago from Lucas Martin. Hearing this, the man went pale and put his hands on his head in despair. Sarah brought him a glass of water. "Here, drink it. Don't worry so much. Come into the house. Tell us everything in order. We were just about to have dinner," she fussed. Tara followed her into the kitchen and whispered, "Mum, are you out of your mind? We don't know him. You never know what's on his mind." The woman looked at her daughter reproachfully and quietly replied, "Things happen in life. I feel he is not a bad man. He's just in trouble. We'll find out." Putting the food on the table, Sarah cooled the stranger. He ate all with greed and appetite. Evidently, he had not eaten anything for a long time. And then he told his story. "My name is Kevin. My father died early, and my mother found a man who was raising a son, Lucas. My life immediately became bitter. Lucas was naughty, and then he blamed everything on me. I tried to talk to my mother about it, but all I heard in response was that I should be patient and try not to quarrel with Lucas. That's why I started working as a construction worker early and moved away from them. My own father left me this house. I didn't even know how Lucas could sell it to you. He is a great swindler. By the way, I went to jail because of him. Lucas got into a drunken brawl. It ended tragically. He was already on probation, so he persuaded me, a young fool, to take his blame. He said they wouldn't give me much, and then I'd be amnested, and I'd be back in a year like nothing had happened. But I got the full penalty in court.
Lucas never even came to see me. Didn't even say thanks. Now, who needs me? I was in jail and I'm a bum now. What a fool I am. Thank you, people, for the meal. I'll leave you now. It's getting late. He turned and stood up. Sarah stood up after him. No, out of the question. Where are you going to go at night, Kevin? Stay with us. Live with us for some time. It's not your fault you're the victim of a bad man. There's a room over there that's empty. I'll take the things out of it and make up the bed for you. Kevin was embarrassed, but he had nowhere else to go, so he agreed. First, Kevin did the men's chores around the house, and then got a job as a driver at a poultry farm. He turned out to be polite and well-mannered, and in the evenings he and Tara often took walks by the lake, enjoying the coolness of the water and talking a lot. Tara had never experienced this before. With Irvin, she felt burning passion. She was like a madwoman ready to run after him wherever. But there was a wholly different, deep and reverent feeling between her and Kevin. She was attracted to him. He smelled reliability and peace. Quite imperceptibly, the couple became closer. They felt so good and comfortable together, as if they had lived their lives together. And only Peyton was terribly annoyed that Tara chose some convict over him and dishonoured him to the entire neighbourhood. He began insulting Tara by picking her up outside the school. Tara kept quiet and didn't say anything to Kevin. She didn't want him to get into a confrontation, because he had just come out of prison. But he already saw that his beloved was not herself, and once he firmly told Peyton that one more word and he was not responsible for himself. Peyton laughed right in his face. Wow, the prisoner has a voice. You're nothing. I'll crush you. You'll rot in jail. No one will remember you. And he was the first to swing his fists at Kevin. But Kevin gave his assailant a good punch in the jaw with his right. Peyton fell down, and Kevin walked away. From that moment on, Peyton stopped bothering Tara. The couple calmed down, thinking that he had come to his senses and left them alone. But how wrong they were. Peyton harboured a terrible grudge and hatred for both of them, and resolved at all costs to take revenges. One day, drunk as a skunk, with his friends Paul and Sam, who obeyed the rich ringleader unconditionally, Peyton told them his criminal plan. As soon as it gets dark, we'll break into that convict's house and tie everybody up. Then we'll pour gasoline all over it and set it on fire. No one will even look into it. Our precinct officer is my dad's friend. Paul wasn't against it, but Sam hesitated. Peyton, aren't you overreacting? I'm okay with beating somebody up, but that's different. Peyton pounded his fist on the table. So you got cold feet. Well, I still have those documents in my safe, the ones that should have put you in jail a long time ago. It was my daddy who saved you. Or have you already forgotten? Sam became humble, and an hour later, the three, quite tipsy, broke into Tara's house, kicking in the door. Come out, Kevin, we'll deal with you. Bring your teacher so she can see who's the real boss here. The bullies cackled wildly, but they didn't consider the most important thing, that there was a big dog in the house. When Kevin and Tara ran into the hallway, there was already a fierce battle. Archie was fighting to the end, bleeding, but the forces were unequal, and he fell to the floor, unable to rise again. Sarah ran screaming to the neighbours. She cried and said all the prayers she knew to herself, hoping that a miracle would happen, and her family would not be hurt. Kevin fought and defended his bride's honour and his home from the unwanted guests, but the hooligans quickly felled him to the ground. Fortunately, several men from the neighbouring houses came running in time.
They were able to overpower the attackers, tied them up, and called the police. During their arrest, Peyton shouted curses, but Kevin and Tara did not hear him. They leaned over Archie. Tara was crying profusely.
"Sweetheart, don't die. I'm begging you. Kevin, save him, please," sobbed the inconsolable woman.
The man carefully put the dog on the blanket and rushed to the local paramedic. When he saw the dog, the sleepy paramedic scratched the back of his head. "It's not a human. I've never stitched wounds on a dog before. I don't know if I can." "All right, bring him inside." For 2 hours, the elderly paramedic fiddled around with the dog. At last he came out, sat down tiredly on the porch, and lit a cigarette. "Kevin, the wounds are serious. I did everything I could. If he survives the night, he'll be fine. And if not, don't be angry. I'm not God." Kevin heartily thanked him and carefully picked up the sleeping dog and carried him home. They did not leave Archie's side all night. Tara stroked his head and whispered, "Live, my dear. Don't dare to die. Thank you. You saved all our lives. You are my hero." Fortunately, the crisis was over, and in the morning the dog opened his eyes, licked his owner, and quietly whimpered in pain. Tara and Kevin nursed him for a long time, injected antibiotics and treated wounds, fed him the most delicious food. Their love and care created a true miracle, and the dog recovered. Meanwhile, a detective came from the city, and Peyton and his father's dark dealings and machinations were uncovered. As a result, they were punished. Once, in the fall, Kevin tried to start the fireplace, but it did not work. He checked the chimney and discovered that the entire brick pipe was in a terrible state. As he removed the bricks, he fumbled with his hand for a square object. It took him a long time, and finally he pulled out an old box. Tara came over, and when they opened it, everyone gasped in amazement. There were old silver and gold coins. Kevin was taken aback. "I remember my dad telling me about my great-grandfather, who sort of got rich in the mines, but he was very greedy and left my grandfather nothing. My grandfather dug through the whole plot searching for treasure, but did not find anything, and it turned out there was his inheritance." "Oh my gosh. Well, darling, will you marry me now? Now that I'm not quite a pauper?" Tara hugged him. "Silly, I love you both with and without money. You're the most valuable thing I have." After selling all the coins, the family built a nice new house and had a lavish wedding. Several years passed. Tara and Kevin lived soul to soul, and only the fact that Tara could not get pregnant overshadowed their happiness. Doctors said nothing was wrong with her health. Kevin was watching with bitterness as his wife spent hours in the store looking at baby crawlers and toys, and soon he decided on a desperate step. One day he picked Tara up from work, and she was shocked when he drove her to the same orphanage where she had once been raised. "Kevin, why are we here? I don't have the best memories of this scary place." The husband took her hand and looked her in the eye. "We have a strong family, and we both really want a baby. So, why are we fixated on this problem? Let's adopt a baby and become real parents to him. After all, it's not about who gave birth, but who raised a child and put their heart into him." Tears came to Tara's eyes, and she hugged her husband strongly in agreement. As they cautiously entered the playroom, a perky little boy of about 3 dropped the old car without wheels and ran up to them, limping slightly on one leg. "I'm Tommy," he said, and businesslike, holding out his chubby little hand to Kevin. The man didn't get confused. picked up the toddler in his arms and said, "I'm Kevin, and this is Tara. We want to be your parents. Will you live with us? We have a big house, a dog. I'll make you a sandbox and swings." Tara stroked the baby's wavy blonde head and felt a rush of tenderness inside. She understood now how Sarah had felt when she adopted her. Everyone, from the principal to the nannies, dissuaded them from taking this particular boy, saying he was troubled, noisy, his father was unknown, and his mother was a drunkard. Besides, he was sick all the time. There were problems with his leg. He needed to have an operation. But Tara and Kevin said without any hesitation that they would adopt him. It took another year for the surgery and rehabilitation, and finally all the problems were behind them. The boy grew up inquisitive, quick and clever. Kevin often took him fishing, and Tara read him stories about pirates and adventures, and every time she put him to bed, she said the 3 cherished words with pleasure: "I love you." And soon Tara noticed that she was starting to feel nauseous in the morning and wanted to sleep terribly. And she also started to eat pickles all the time. Her mother couldn't take it anymore and said, "Daughter, why don't you go and see a doctor? I'm no expert, of course, but I think you're pregnant." There was no end of joy when the ultrasound showed that Tara was pregnant with twins. Kevin was over the moon. At the due date, the adorable twins were born. One day, Tara said to Sarah, "Thank you, Mummy, for choosing me back then, and then you didn't send Kevin away. You're the best one I have." The woman only grinned. "I had nothing to do with it at all. God's plans are always better than ours. You just always have to do good, and it will surely come back 100-fold."